Why do we have so little trust? We talked about it a little bit before, that there is this tendency towards lower stakeholder trust. There are many stories that can be told about why there is so little trust. Let me try to organize them. When I hear and ask my students about this, why is there so little trust, you can sort of come up with a number of buckets. And typically, trust in business, actually, if there is, it is related to competence. We do trust people that are competent to do a job that we couldn't do. So a car company that produces a car that we can drive, we trust that car company to produce a car that can drive. And there's good reason to trust that company for exactly that matter. We don't trust a company that is incompetent. We don't trust managers that are incompetent. That means they don't fulfill a function, a managerial function or a technical function. So for example, when we want internet and the company doesn't provide internet and it's very unstable, we sort of mistrust that organization that doesn't provide functioning service. We get angry. When an airline, for example, doesn't service us well, in a way that we say, we bought a ticket, we want to get from A to B, and they're not able to provide that flight. We don't want to be on that airline anymore. If we can find another alternative, we will switch, because we don't perceive them as competent. There's a whole other bucket why organizations, and especially businesses, are not trusted. And they are related to the notion of integrity. Integrity entails the notion of honoring your word. So what you say is what people will ask you to do. That is different from competence. In a way that many organizations are saying certain things, like they cherish and value customers, and then customers don't feel cherished and valued. They feel abused, for example. When a customer goes in, buys an expensive product that they hope to be able to return if it malfunctions and they can't do so, then that's not honoring integrity. When you find companies that say, yes, you can get a service and you can always disconnect, but then when you try to disconnect that service, you find out it's very difficult to reach these people. In fact, it's difficult to get a hold of anybody in that organization that will tell you how to disconnect. They make it purposefully hard for you to not do that. That's a lack of integrity for many people, and they'll say, well, I don't trust this organization. I will not go back to this organization. I will be careful of getting any kind of service installed that tells me that I can freely uninstall it if I don't like it anymore. There are all kinds of other violations of integrity, but they always have to do with that somebody doesn't honor their word. By honoring your word, oftentimes what people mean is that not that you can't fail. Of course, we do fail. Mistakes happen. What matters in terms of trust is that that failure is acknowledged, that people feel, okay, you know what, there was something wrong, I apologize, I fully take ownership and responsibility, and I'm going to make it right this way or that way. Good customer service honors integrity, honors the word. There's a failure of integrity. There's low integrity in a managerial and business world. That's why trust is so low. People feel they're going to be cheated. They operate as if there's always a hook, and probably they're right to do so. There are whole managerial executive classes which tell and teach people to mistrust, because it's so important to look through the kind of lack of integrity. There's so much bullshit going on that it's difficult to sort of understand when and where there is a statement of integrity. We have a lot of low integrity that gives us a sense of low trust in the business context. unfortunately, and beyond too. A third element that people oftentimes cite when they say why there's so little trust, it's a lack of benevolence. We do expect people to care about each other. We're fundamentally social. So we work better when we can trust each other, and that means when we care. And there's some sense of care and empathy. There is an example, for example, to highlight that. Do we trust a competent killer that will tell us, I will kill you at 12:30 tomorrow morning? That killer comes and will do as he says, honor his word, high integrity, and is also highly competent in killing and has shown that several times before. Do we trust that person? No, we don't trust that person. We actually do expect, in terms of our full trust, that somebody is benevolent and is not going to hurt us. In most contexts, even though it's not as extreme as with the killer, we do expect that organizations overall do care. They don't just only honor their word. Let's say, maximize shareholder value. Any organization that is very competent at maximizing shareholder value honors their word by maximizing shareholder value. And that lacks benevolence is not going to be trusted much. We need trust. We need benevolence. We need those signals of care to be willing to trust an organization. In the business world, that is not the current state of affairs. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The expectation of opportunism is there. I've said it before, that's the theory. That's even the kind of setup that we have created, that we do expect opportunistic behavior. We do expect people to do us bad, to harm us, if we're not watching out. So that's a bad state of affair in terms of trust. And it is also an explanation of why there is so little of it. A fourth piece that is critical when I'm asking students, like, why is there so little trust, is that it does matter what kind of values are represented. And that people trust people when they feel there is a shared sense of values. There are shared values. Those values can differ. Yet amongst religious groups, for example, you feel high levels of trust. Social capital, they call it. High social capital. There is a shared sense of values. In certain companies, there are shared values amongst employees. Those that do have these shared values, they do also have and report higher levels of trust. Now, what happens when those values are not shared? When your value is abusing the environment and mine is to care about the environment. When an organization's value is to make more money and mine is to do money and make the world a better place. We see that over generations of people, Gen Z, the millennials, etc., those values are shifting and have been shifting. And it's hard for current business leaders to actually authentically represent shared values with these new millennial generations, for example. They're struggling with that. And trust is pretty low with these generations, and they're highly cynical, like some of the students that we've seen in the roundtables. Very cynical about these statements, about the business roundtable and the statement of purpose of the purpose of the corporation, etc. So cynicism is high. The traditional way of addressing trust problems seems to have been through transparency. And we find transparency doesn't matter. Just think about this example of the killer. He's very transparent. He tells you exactly what he's going to do. A corporation similarly could be very transparent in saying, we're exploiting the environment, we're polluting the environment, we're going to make as much money as we can. That's transparent. But it's not trustworthy for most people. So in that sense, we're living in a climate, a business climate, a societal climate, where trust cannot thrive, where the absence of values and commitments to values and integrity are not conducive to establishing what we need in terms of better collaboration. This could be a dire state of affairs, and it is most likely under all kinds of assessments, yet it's also a huge opportunity for those that understand how to build trust. I'm going to get there in a moment.